At the end of the movie Braveheart, one of my favorite movies, the narrator says they fought like warrior poets. That hung with me. That and a few other sources was really instrumental in inspiring the name Warrior Poet Society. That's you and I, defenders of people. We're hard to kill, and we're training so we'd be good protectors. We love high ideals like freedom. Freedom, as we recognize, freedom is costly to gain, and it is costly to keep, as the tree of liberty must from time to time be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants. And so we arrive at the Scottish freedom fighter William Wallace. And so I want to talk about, one, his life, try to separate fact from fiction, which is very difficult to do, and also just kind of revisit some fun in the movie, which, yes, it's based on a lot of legendary development, but it still can inspire us to this day and kind of lead us into a discussion on that. William Wallace was 7 feet tall, according to Blind Harry, or the Minstrel Henry. Blind Harry was the guy who, about 100 years or 200 years after the life of William Wallace, Wallace was supposed to be born somewhere around 1270. We don't even know when the guy was born. But there's a guy named Blind Harry who was more of a storyteller. He would rise the party lines and tell entertaining stories as trade, and so legendary development, all that plays in, and historians really don't trust his testimony regarding Wallace, but it's one of the only sources that we have. There's other sources like Robert Burns, the Scottish poet, but he's even borrowing from Blind Harry. I don't think he was 7 feet tall. He was probably a really big dude, tall dude. He was probably very well educated, just like Blind Harry would say, knowing Greek and Latin and French. I hope that's true. According to Blind Harry's account, he was originally studying for the priesthood, and he had an incredible knowledge of the Bible. However, when Edward I would come to power around 1291 or so and start basically subjecting Scotland to, his rule and making Scotland become somewhat of a vassal state, making all of them pay homage to him, a lot of the Scots had a big problem with that, and apparently Wallace became undone. That, and according to the legend, an English sheriff ended up murdering his bride, Marion, as the movie picks up. And Wallace exacts his revenge and murders this sheriff. And we don't know if any of that's true. It's probably not, but I want to believe it is. So until I have evidence to the contrary, maybe I'll just believe it anyway. The Scots had an uprising around 1296 because they didn't like how the English were playing ball. The English came in and pounded the Scottish army into submission, and then by 1297, just within 1 year elapses, Wallace comes out of nowhere, raises a Scottish army, and does great damage at the Battle of Stirling Bridge, defeating the English, who outnumbered him about 6-1. He rigged a bridge so that it would collapse and allow the English to be trapped and just laid waste. Then he would follow that up with a decisive battle at Berwick, where about 10,000 people are going to get killed under Wallace, and apparently this is where he starts getting some of his negative press too. Apparently, according to the English and other sources, he was killing women and children. He was sparing none. Then he'll go and raid northern England, and we don't know why he raided northern England. The movie portrays it like he was bold and courageous, and maybe he was, but there was also a famine going on in Scotland at the time, and to feed his army and to replenish, it was easy to pick off some of these small towns in northern England where he could get sustenance for his folks. Either way, I don't know. He couldn't go toe-to-toe with the English on their own soil, not against their real standing army. So what he did is he went into a retreatist strategy. They would pursue him, and he would attack small towns while he was leaving, and he would leave scorched earth of these English villages on his way out. So he's just decimating. The English will claim that he's sacking churches and killing women and children, and I don't know if that's true. Of course, to the Scots, he is a hero that committed no sin, and to the English, he was a tyrant. So there's two sides to every story, and because of all the legendary development, I don't really know what's true. But there you go. So we have a safer idea of history. It finally comes to a head at the Battle of Falkirk. I think the movie did pretty well depicting that based on what the historians are telling me. By the way, my source is Charles River Editors, The Life and Legacy of William Wallace, the Scottish freedom fighter. And so that's my source. I read it on Audible. And so a lot of times, because I'm training, doing classes, right now I'm in Virginia teaching Pistol 1 and Pistol 2 class. If you want to come train with me, do some shooting, sign up on my website, warriorpoetsociety.us. Anyway, what was I saying? I shouldn't have done the plug because that's such a distraction. Some of you are like, yeah, shut up, plug. Get to Wallace. Yeah, Roger, I'm on it. Anyway, Wallace gets in this big battle at Falkirk, does not do well. The English pound them into submission, and Wallace flees the battlefield. Then he's going to go across the European continent trying to raise diplomatic support and get other countries to help Scottish cause. And he's not going to come back on the scene until something like 1303. When he was finally captured in 1306, a fugitive in his own country, he'd be led up to a scaffold. He gets a laurel crown put on him, very messianic. They'll read judgments against him, calling him a traitor and a committer of war crimes. He'll answer the crime of traitor, saying, "Never have I paid homage to England, therefore I cannot be a traitor." But he's not going to get a fair trial because why listen to the testimony of a traitor? So he doesn't get that. So the man Wallace is shrouded in mystery, but what he stood for is more important. I don't know what is fact and fiction, but I know in 1 year time, he comes out of nowhere, raises an army, defeats English armies, and he becomes the guardian of all Scotland, a leader of Scotland. You've got to be pretty charismatic. You've got to be an incredible leader. You've got to be an incredible man of action and a tactician. So he certainly has warrior poet qualities. Maybe he's everything that the movie made him out to be. I hope so. I want to believe that. The movie was incredible. I love the movie. And even though there's legendary development regarding Wallace, doesn't mean that the movie can't still speak to us. I loved in the beginning when Wallace had lost his father, his uncle Argyle takes him, and as Wallace is holding his Uncle Argyle's sword, or his father's sword, whoever it belonged to, and he was just in admiration of it, Argyle takes it from him and says, "First, I'll teach you how to use this, and then this." That was a terrible attempt at a Scottish accent. I love that. Train hard, train smart. And this is the real weapon right here. Everything else is a tool. You're the weapon, not what you carry in your hand. Another thing that I really love from the movie is when he comes back from just living wherever he was living, he encounters his brother, who immediately challenges to him a test of manhood. And he gets the big rock and he fails the big rock throwing competition, punks his brother out. Big brother throws a big rock. Didn't hurt Wallace. Wallace throws a little rock and knocks his brother down. And that was a really fun scene as well, showing you, yeah, it's not good enough to train hard. You need to train smart, like how I'm putting my taglines all over the place. Another thing is Wallace's rousing freedom speech and this, again, this is Hollywood, but incredible speech, and I love it anyway. He punks out his army who is afraid of the English, and he says something to the effect of, "Flee and you may live.
At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?"
Man, that amps me up. I'm ready to go fight the English. I like the English. Just kidding, England, because England's watching. Let's see. The other thing is, of course, his execution scene where he's being tortured to death and refusing to submit and pay homage to Edward I and repent of treason, which he didn't believe he was guilty of. And I think that hits me of just the sacrifice, the dying for the ideal, saying, no, 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 my life and my pain pales in comparison to the greater ideal, and I'll sacrifice myself on the altar of the bigger deal, freedom, my countrymen, and that's what he died for. Now, I don't know whether Wallace really did die like that. His death scene probably did not go that way. But there are warrior poets all throughout history, and their inspiration speaks to us today. And that's why I love studying history, gleaning from what I can, so that it can make me a better protector today, and it can make us stronger together. Cool. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. See ya.